Okay, so I'm Mika. I work for a gambling company, as in I was sort of called in at the last minute, thank you Tony, this is always fun, to sort of stand in for someone who couldn't make it. So of course I pulled off material of something work in progress and then went completely wild. You'll have something brand new. So, first of all, does anyone have any idea where the title comes from? Have you ever heard anyone using the word better mousetrap? Yeah. Okay. So it comes off of something that if you build a better mousetrap, people will rush to your door. So we'll come back to that later. The idea is that I'm going to actually nab a bit on Rick, so because what you showed us was essentially an antithesis to usability. And I've seen usability like that mostly in early 2000s in enterprise businesses. So right now, you're a bit behind the times, guys. Yeah, so sorry about that. But I think in this case, you deserved it. Did anyone try to count the number of clicks he actually had to make in that demo? Yeah, it's probably broken. In any case, so the lessons we have for usability and security usually at odds with each other over the past quarter of a century. So, some background. Where the hell do I come from? So, yeah, I help to run a gambling company. We work with 24/7. We're never offline. If we are down even for 5 seconds, it's usually a bad idea. If we are down for more than 30 seconds, it's a really bad idea. And yes, let's be honest, I make gambling happen. I'm not afraid of that one, or I'm not essentially ashamed of it. It's a job, and yes, gambling is regulated, so it comes with baggage, but more than anything, we are entrusted with other people's money. So in that sense, we are essentially trusted like banks and hated like loan sharks. So with that comes off some kind of extra requirement. And something I actually welcome is that I'm trying to keep the talk short, and I also welcome questions during my talk. So if you have questions, raise your hand, holler up. If it goes to any kind of discussion, all the better. In fact, the best feedback I could get out of this talk is A++ would heckle again. Yeah. And so the title was definitely not an accident. And if it takes more than 15 minutes, there will be essentially Q&A afterwards. Other than that, fire away during the talk. I won't mind. I welcome all of this. And then, of course, there's the completely unavoidable slide in the middle. Everyone here does the same thing. Those guys will sell you something. Usually they will sell you slaves. Yeah. I wanted to get it out of the way. If you have any questions afterwards, come talk to me. As in, I have plenty of answers. They are no stupid questions. They are only really silly answers. And I have plenty of them. So yeah, let's get on with it. So, number one. I'm getting back to this one. So, I've said for more than a year or two that DevOps is not about tooling. It's about UX for engineers. How many of you write your own tools? Okay, I got 20 hands at most. How many of you write tools for other teams apart from yourselves? Okay, why do I get more hands for this than writing tools for yourselves?
We use other people's tools to do our job.
And here's the next problem. Have you ever considered them to be subpar? Yeah. So the funny thing is, really is that I actually put DevOps into 9 words. There were 6 in the previous talk, as in you build it, you run it, add more, you own it. So it's the same thing. It's all about providing self-sufficiency. The tooling we are supposed to write for other teams is to make them able to use our tools that we wrote ourselves in a way that we are not required, we should not matter. If we are required to be in between as a gatekeeper, we're doing it wrong. So anytime you get called because someone needs help, your tooling is insufficiently good. You have failed at usability. And to be honest, we saw what happens. And here's the thing. Yeah. But also, I'm going to actually use Rick as an example, not as a how it works, but actually, what Rick actually showed was something when it actually worked. Because if there's one thing we've learned in 25 years, it's usability and security are often seen as complete opposites. Security is very often perceived as lack of usability. At which point, what happens? Correct. Not just cheat. People are inventive. People will do anything they can to get rid of every kind of blocker on their way. If something is standing in their way to get the job done, they will find ways to avoid it. If they avoid your tools, you have something in production which you don't know about. If they avoid the security features or the security tools, you have something which you don't know about and which can break in any time in the future without you even knowing about it. Even being able to see what happened. So this distills to everything I do and everything I talk in here. So 25 years has taught us a few things. Let's see, how many of you recognize this one? Okay, so like I said, I'm using essentially the first two lines are the one thing that matters. Osmotic A/B testing, essentially, we've been abusing all users in the industry as horrible guinea pigs. We've done things and imposed rules which make no sense. Fine. Eventually something actually works. And what we find in the meanwhile is just roadkill. The stuff that doesn't matter gets shunted away, but not always. Anyone recognize this one? How many of you actually know how to use that tool? 1, 2, 3. I have 10 people lying here.
You ought to use Google.
Excuse me?
You ought to use Google.
Yes, you can.
Read my pages.
Okay, I'm going to ask, could any one of you, even with help of Google, set up a detached key? Somewhere where you have your sign-in key and encryption key separately on the same key ring without instructions? No. Even from Google, you end up going to a page where you need to go into the GPG shell, interactively do things in certain order, and pray you didn't screw it up. So, in that sense, usability of that tool has not improved in 25 years. It's still secure, it's just utterly atrocious to use. So, it feels like this to do anything with it. But we've actually learned something. We've seen how things can fail, and we know that people don't want to do this. What we have instead, we found out over the past few years, is how to do things better. It's this. Any of you recognize the tool on the right? No hands. One hand. Can you name it?
Signal.
Correct. Okay, so Signal. Where else is Signal being used? What is the biggest deployment of Signal protocol in the world? Okay, so you know that. Why didn't anyone else spot that in here? Just looks odd, right? Has any one of you had actually usability problems with Signal or WhatsApp? Good. I got a yes. Please explain. Please tell me.
So I actually prefer Signal over WhatsApp because you can use it on the desktop without the phone having a connection.
True.
The huge usability nightmare in Signal is if you add another client, then it doesn't synchronize your history. So that client only receives messages from the point where it was added.
Okay. So, excuse me, could you repeat that? So, Signal doesn't accept messages from clients who don't have it yet.
History.
So,
Bring history back.
history of Bootstrap.
You can have multiple clients connected to the same Signal number.
That's true.
Yeah, but they only receive messages from the point that they were established, so they don't backfill history.
Yes. The question actually is that, which is that? Is that security or usability? Thank you. And in this sense, one of the features which actually GPG does is it provides no forward secrecy or backward secrecy. If the key is compromised, everything in the past can be read, everything in the future can be read. In Signal, all of the keys have essentially time box windows. They are valid for a number of messages or some window of time. Once you lose that, you can't see backwards or forwards. So I would, in that sense, consider that what you said is about like usability is actually a feature of both. It's never going to be perfect. It does compete because we expect to see history. We've been conditioned to see in the past. But what if we don't want that level of access? Repudiation is actually important. That's why OTR exists. Off-the-record messaging is a thing, so that you can revoke anything you've written because you publish your signing keys afterwards. Anything you ever published, once the key is out there, anyone can forge your messages. Effectively meaning that nobody can say that you have absolutely written something in the past. That is security against physical threats, not just random snooping. So that would have been okay 25 years ago. That's okay today. And a final bonus, Signal is way more secure. It does things better. Another example. All of you probably have used this tool. Okay. How many of you would rather claw your eyes out with a wooden spoon than use OpenSSL? Yes. So, the truth is that it's far too complex to use. As in, this is a way to set up modern way of getting a certificate. Nobody uses CNAME anymore because as SNI, we have one server or one endpoint serving multiple host names. So we need these. We need aliases. In fact, CNAME has been deprecated since 2006, I believe, and obsolete since 2011. And it's still used. I still see stacks in the world deployed in the past 4 years which break if your certificate comes without CNAME. Quite funny. You provide a valid certificate in 2018, and the service provider comes back, could you get the CNAME in place as well? As in, we can't load it. Our stack just broke. Well done, guys. Well done. But the truth is, it's necessary. As in, anyone who needs domain validation, or actually EV, SN validation, they can't use Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt now provides wildcards. You can use them, but it's somewhat tricky to automate something at a very, very wide scale. So you can't avoid it. You need certificates in some way. And usability-wise, that's pretty horrible. And there's a business case. Anyone recognize this one? Anyone recognize Trustico?
Yeah.
Okay. What did they do?
Yeah, there's shell script running around that server.
Yeah. So here's as root. So the thing is, but think about it this way. Those guys ended up serving and storing 23,000 certificates and private keys, which they kept copies of with themselves and then relayed that backwards. So the customers didn't have to do all of this bullshit. Because this is hard. This is complex. It's easy to really mess about, and it's hard to understand what you're really doing. So I don't like to say this, but usability-wise, they nailed it. They have an excellent usability use case here. Only thing is, they are incompetent. And they deserve to be shut down, drawn, quartered, and hung head side down. Genuinely. That kind of incompetence is criminally negligent. And unfortunately, it's still necessary. So what we have, OpenSSL is another tool. It's been around for 25 years. Started with SSL EAY back in 90 or 89. God knows how long ago. It's still used because nothing better has existed. Every other tool is equally broken or even worse to use. Except this one. Anyone who knows, can anyone name where this is used outside of CloudFlare? Correct. So CloudFlare wrote something to serve their infrastructure and generate certificates on the fly with something which is far easier to do than OpenSSL. They open sourced it. That tool is good enough that K8 now uses that as their default tool to provision certificates. That's a pretty big step. But think about it this way. It took more than 25 years for someone to really get genuinely annoyed at OpenSSL and to find time to understand that UX matters. We can't let security features be behind some opaque, non-understandable, complete bollocks usability wall. It doesn't just work that way. So what we have these days is something better. Okay, I'll be honest. There's still some boilerplate here. If we compare with the previous one, we have these 3 lines are the same as those here. No ordering, everything automated, comes off. Yeah, you do need still to know some magic commands because you need a goddamn pipe. What comes out of SSL gen key is a JSON wrapped payload. So you need to still unpack it, which is kind of annoying, as in you still need to know some magic arcane invocations to actually make it work. But it's easier. Of course, the problem is that if you don't have this entry, you have no guarantee that it actually works in the wild. Again, that's still usability which is missing, but at least it's easier to automate, easier to understand. And let's be honest, this wouldn't exist if Google didn't actually go out of their way to make SSL more usable. The TLS stack in Golang is pretty damn good. It's actually written by people who care and understand, and who actually get reviewed by other people who care about UX. If it doesn't make sense, they get really, really, really burned. You can't muck that up. I'm going to drop another example, something which is completely and utterly wrong. This is a real-life example from last week. I grabbed this. It is from this very page. Happens to be the #1 hit. Your password must contain, if you Google that phrase. Really, guys, where is that from? London School of Economics. That school teaches about incentives. And they do that. What is wrong with this picture? Yeah. So how would you improve this? Okay, let's start with, let's count how many things can you spot that are wrong in this list. You see me?
Everything? Well, not
yeah, okay.
dictionary is a good thing.
Yeah, okay. Infinity is a good number. Let's whittle it down. So we have aleph 1, anyone going downwards?
Your password policy being in the public domain.
Actually, I would actually question your judgment, because if your policy can't be public, at that point you're relying on opacity and obscurity. If you can't tell why your things are secure, I think your bar is pretty low.
Why would you restrict to characters only supported on campus machines?
Thank you. That's a good one.
Of course,
Yeah.
Whatever you like. Why does the background database care which character set is supported?
Because when IBM, you don't want to chat.
Not necessarily.
Actually, that's a good one. Yeah. I have questions.
Basically, it minimizes support holes.
Yes.
That's it.
You should hash it so you don't care.
No,
You
what I mean
should,
is,
but you want to reduce your support costs. So by turning around and saying don't use a character that's not on the keyboard, you eliminate phone calls of I can't type my character in because I can't find this particular key on the keyboard.
Yes, and it continues.
Okay. Actually, there are a few more things. As in, this actually makes more sense this year than it would have made 2 years ago. As in, we are now at the age where we have transliterating keyboards on our mobile phones, where when you insert a phrase or word, it tries to put in a goddamn emoji in its place. And it may do it behind your back. Which is one of those things, as in, did someone actually think this through? But yeah. So I can understand why this is there, but these are all bullshit rules. Because, let's be honest, this relies on people to be able to remember the passwords. You can remember a few, but if you end up doing rotation, which is, by the way, wrong, or if you end up...
Being revoked with the last NIST bit where the guy went, I got all of that wrong.
Yes. So the thing, no, there are other things. As in, if you read the news over the past year or two, we have had finally both NIST and GCHQ coming against password protection policies. They have finally realized that it is actually better to say that you don't rotate your passwords, you come up with really good ones and then keep them around. There is research from 2010 research, which bases on more than 15 years of data, that if we do this, people come up with patterns. Once you spot the pattern, you can crack 70% of all future passwords as well. And now you have a list of all passwords somewhere. You can build a pattern, and you throw a password list of not only current but also previous ones to a hashing rig. You pay $2,000 for Amazon or someone else to run it across 40,000 GPUs for say 1 week. You now have 70% of all of the users' future passwords cracked as well. That is utterly insane. And that brings me to my next point, because the problem is that humans are trying to be, they want convenience. What really happens is this. The best password is the one which you don't even know. The correct solution to getting a password is not come up with something. Correct answer is you right-click. You don't know what it is. Only thing that you care about is the entropy. Make sure the defaults give you enough entropy and give your passwords. You may need to specify some goddamn horrible policy that includes the range of characters that you need in there. Yeah. That's all. You don't know. You have never seen the password. You don't know it. Even with a rubber hose and a wrench and a blowtorch, you can't possibly leak it.
Well, you can always reveal where is it stored and the password for that.
Yes. But then the thing is that that's one of the more things. You need access. And even then, so this is one of the things. At this point, the password rotation policy may have made sense when we had 5 or 6 systems in our use. If you work in marketing, HR, anywhere near payments, or if you work in our domain and happen to work with dozens of third-party suppliers of old and current services, you have more than 100 passwords to manage. Nobody can ever remember that one. And you absolutely will never, never want to reuse a password because they leak. When it gets cracked, it's not if, when it gets cracked. Someone now has a tuple of known login, known good password. Okay, let's find the domain they are in. Let's try that pair against everything else we can find. This actually happens in gambling already. We know there are gambling sites who have been cracked. Their password lists have been breached. And we've seen attempts. We've seen essentially the same username or email credentials coming up. And they have pre-built dictionary lists of known passwords and their variations for those particular logins. It's no longer brute force. People are now using this, and they are doing more targeted within the particular domain. Gamblers use multiple gambling services. We use multiple cloud providers. If you work in office management, you use multiple hardware suppliers or service providers. If you work with anything dealing with payment, you work with 8, 10, or 50 payment providers. If you need to use any of that, it's impossible. Yeah, newsflash. But there's an upside. You can sell convenience. And that actually is a bonus. We've seen this with GPG to Signal. We've seen this with passwords and password managers. You don't remember end passwords. You remember one password or one passphrase, which makes your life more convenient. That level of convenience combined with better security brings benefits, because if we get that far, if we provide something which is more secure and more convenient, you can't keep people away from this. This is something where it again comes back to the fact that I saw more hands writing tools for other teams. Think about how you write your APIs. Use common sense. Think about ways to break them. Find ways to make them resilient, make them more usable and more secure at the same time. Minimize the surface you can have. Because, let's be honest, if we do this wrong, we end up roadkill, the next Trustico. This is essentially what you don't want to become. So, nobody wants to be driven over by a truck and then being painted over. Or being made fun of in front of a couple of hundred engineers. So, that's my talk. Lessons learned. Have a look. We have sites, we have a blog, and according to anything else, in addition to security, I also happen to care about my privacy. You will not find me either on Twitter or on Facebook. You need to talk to me. Thank you.